Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I'm here to welcome you to enter the Poserverse. In today's video, if you slept on what was released on July the 1st, these are books that you should run, not walk, to your LCS and make sure you pick up if you missed because there wasn't a DC or a Marvel book out this week.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Coming in at number 5, I Can Sell You a Body, number 4. This is from IDW, and the author is Ryan Ferrier, and the artist is George Campidanis. I really enjoyed this book. This was 4 of 4. If you're looking for a very small IDW book to get into, then you can check out this link to my preview show where I talked about kind of the premise of this story. But what made this book come in at number 5 is just kind of the wild shift that this takes in the later parts of the book. So here you can see Denny, our protagonist, kind of starting to conduct a seance to see if he can summon the soul of the Mafia Don's father to bring him into a body, which is kind of the premise of the book and the promise that got him into the entirety of this mess. But here is where we start to see things slowly start to intertwine with other elements of the story. We find the police who've been investigating him. We find the priest who's been sent from Rome to kind of deal with him, and there ends up being this kind of wild exorcism at the end. As I noted on my blog, comicbookposer.com, there is a nice kind of wrapped up in a bow feeling to this story based on how it ends, but there's also the possibility for an additional arc to this story based on what happens in the epilogue. And either way it shakes out, I'm happy. I think this has been kind of a very interesting premise to a book. I think it's been executed fairly well. And either way, I'm a fan of both the artist and the author, and I want to find more of what they do. Coming in at number 4 is On the Stump, number 3. This is a book that's brought to you by Chuck Brown, Prenzy, and then Clayton Cowles, who is one of the most, I guess, busiest letterers that I see. That almost every book that I review has Clayton Cowles' hands on it. But this book steps the absurdity up a notch. Again, as I kind of reviewed on the blog, this does a lot of things that I like, right? There's a random dude eating a hot dog that gets into a fight. There is a creepy clown-esque person who is attempting to bring down one of our protagonists in the name of not being in the clown league anymore. And then one of my favorite scenes that I'll give, or I guess 2 of my favorite scenes that I'll give you without context are dude having his head cut off because he's choked to death via a chain, and a random coke-fueled orgy in a strip club. This book continues to just kick the absurdity up a notch every single time. I want to see what's happening in terms of the passage of legislation, in terms of what the significance of the book that we see show up several times throughout the chapter is, and it just makes me want to read more and more. Coming in at number 3 is Reaver, number 9. The analogy I drew on the blog was about the story of Cincinnatus, a Roman soldier who wanted to lay down his plow in the name of picking up arms in terms of defending the Republic. What I really feel like offers the best description for what goes on in here is kind of the plot of Rambo 4, when John Rambo is, just wanting to kind of live in his own kind of peaceful world in his little farm, his trailer, what we kind of see him disappear into the background of, but he's called into the name of service. That's what happens in this book to one of the 2 primary characters who we can confirm are still alive. Essen Breaker decides to submit to legal authority at the beginning of the book because of what happens to the children in the church. And once he realizes the system is awfully corrupt, he decides to fight back and really Essen Breaker out, that he is willing to break any man to kind of defy that vow that he made about wanting to live a life of solitude in the new village. The one panel that I want to show you from this book, there are a million times where I kind of talk about why Rakala, who is the skin-eating character, kind of the cannibal people in this book, is one of my favorite characters. We also get to see her kind of lash out in captivity and go fully fledged skin eater. Where, again, we get to see Rakala go full Rakala, and it's kind of glorious to watch her lash out against her captors. Coming in at number 2 this week, I have to hold up with just a board with the title written on it, is Devil's Highway number 1. This was a book that I didn't order fast enough from my LCS, so I had to go the digital route, but I really think there were times where the digital elements of this book kind of enhanced the story. But this was a number 1. It comes from AWA, which, again, in my last video, I kind of talked about why I think they should be the standout publisher of the year 2020. But we get to witness a woman investigating the death of her father, where we kind of discover a large, like, cult or secret underground presence or other things that she may be connected to that are responsible for the death of her father. And one of the reasons why I say the digital version of this story kind of enhances the way the story is told is if you buy this on Comixology and look at the last page in the guided view, the way that reveal kind of plays its way out as you kind of click the button to go pane by pane by pane really blew my mind. When I get my physical copy for my LCS in a week or two, we'll see if I feel the same way. But this is yet another stellar number 1 from AWA, who just continues to bring the heat in every single book that they have put out throughout the year 2020. If you're not reading it, you should, because all of these stories are fan-freaking-tastic. So what's the book of the week? Some people have talked about Negan Lives as being cool, but as we established in the last book, I didn't read The Walking Dead. I don't think you necessarily need to read The Walking Dead to understand Negan Lives. So it was a good book, but not my top 5, definitely not my number 1. So coming in as my undisputed pick of the week for the indie heavy week of July 1st is King of Nowhere number 3 from Boom Studios. This story, while it might just be another simple kind of through arc in terms of establishing a little bit about why our primary character just keeps getting himself rolled up into shit, and we see like the explosion of a motel very shortly after he visits it across a glorious 2-page spread, as we get to meet some very mysterious gentleman who is walking the beaches, or presumably walking the beaches of nowhere with a Geiger counter. This is the character that's kind of alluded to based on the panel. I think this book is gonna set up some earth-shattering reveals for what happens in book number 4. Do we get to figure out why Dennis is being hunted? Do we get to figure out why the citizens of Nowhere have all kinds of abnormalities? Do we get to figure out who is controlling the hunter of Dennis? All of these things are kind of hinted at in Prince's story, and, you know, I hope we slowly start to progress towards some of these answers in the next book. I also think this book had some of my favorite art of the week. I think what Tyler and Hillary Jenkins are doing on this title are just things that you don't see anywhere else, right? You're drawing a very strange population in terms of the way the citizens of Nowhere kind of look like, but that idea kind of dictates the artistic design for the rest of the book. You have a lot of people kind of drawn on unconventional lines. You see a lot of elements of kind of clumsy coloring, and I don't mean that as an insult, but things that kind of change the way that you look at the people who are residing in Nowhere. And it really makes this a book that I want to pick up and put towards the top of my stack week after week after week. I think it's one of the better stories that are going on. I think it's definitely one of my favorite stories coming out of Boom Studios in this moment in time. And I think it's definitely something that people should check out, especially when you only have to buy 3 issues to get into the story. So those of you who are exclusively picking up, titles from the big 2, add King of Nowhere to your pull and you won't be disappointed. So as always, if you have any questions or comments, throw them here in the chat down below. If you like the way I talk about books, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can ring the bell if you want to. I don't know if you do or not, so I'm not going to judge you. But as always, thanks for stopping by, and have a good one.